This is the Educational Research Special Interest Group. We're going to begin with a brief video to sort of get you guys thinking about the topic, and then we'll be splitting off into different sub-hangouts based on the unhangouts that we're using for this session. We're going to open with 4 basic questions. To sort of get you primed and to get started, what are some general areas of educational research interest for you? What do you like to read about? What do you like to hear about in terms of educational research? Next, what are educational research questions you have that you'd like to explore, that you want to answer that hasn't already been answered by others, or hasn't been satisfactorily answered by others? Third, what are some of your go-to educational research methods? Why do you enjoy these methods? And what types of questions do these methods enable you to answer? And finally, what are some of your educational research methods that you've been learning about and or that you want to learn and to apply or acquire? And why are these new methods interesting? So let's begin by doing a quick overview of some of the general educational research topics. One of the major areas has to do with what are the biological-based capabilities for human learning, and why has it evolved to the state that it's in, and what are ways to create trainings and learning in alignment with human capabilities. And then how do people learn? What are the various ways they acquire knowledge and skills and abilities? What motivates people in their various ages, their various contexts? How do we maintain that motivation in the short term, the medium term, and the long term? And then what are ways that we can jump in to motivate learners through gamification, maybe through socio-cultural motivations? How can we appeal to learners' internal motivations and then also external ones? Another area is how can we enhance human capabilities in cognition, in judgment, decision-making, self-control and discipline, in their ability to predict and to protect learning from learning decay? And how can we extend human capabilities through various tools that we have? Another area of interest is how can we help learners correct mistaken ideas, right? Because if humans cannot unlearn, and there's a lot of research that says people cannot unlearn, how can we overlearn to cover over a mistaken understanding through maybe reinforcement, maybe through practice, maybe through lots of examples? And then how can we change human behaviors through teaching and learning, through trainings? And these are actually really hard questions and have huge implications in the world. And then in terms of trainings, how can we enhance them in workplaces? How can we enhance them to adhere more closely to regulatory guidance? How can we enhance trainings for safety, for technological adherence and other applications? Another approach to think about things is the different types of learning contexts. Of course, formal learning comes from accredited institutions, K-12, pre-K-12 through higher ed and grad school. We also have non-formal learning, which is learning that involves courses from non-accredited institutions, so private organizations and others. And then we also have informal learning. So if you took up a new hobby and you acquire knowledge and skills and abilities as part of that, you are engaging in informal learning. And of course, as people, we engage in all 3 of these types. There's another way to think about learning and education. So one way to differentiate is what track is the learner on? Is he or she on a professional track, or is he or she not on a non-professional track? So are they focused more on being amateurs and dabblers, or are they trying to make a career of it? Now, in terms of some classic educational research methods, of course, the gold standard has to be, in some ways, experiments. So learning sequences with learning interventions, pre and post tests, and then statistically significant outcomes based on certain interventions with other variables being controlled. But of course, we also have surveys, we engage in focus groups and interviews, we analyze cases in a qualitative way at micro scale, we engage in applied research in classrooms and workplaces. And of course, based on available data, we also conduct meta-analyses and based on publications that others have done. And then we use a variety of combinations of research methods. And of course, the more contemporaneous approaches involve using socio-technical systems like learning management systems, massive open online courses, course management systems, or content management systems. And we analyze the data culled from those systems. We use big data analysis to try to find patterns. We use different types of machine learning in programs and in different other methods to find patterns in data. We analyze social networks and how various achievements are made through groups and how information moves and how people affect the groups around them, right? And whether they bring in positive or negative contributions for creativity. There are Bayesian types of analyses and other types of conditional statistical conditional probabilities to understand, what precursors do we need to have a learner achieve certain levels of learning. What other conditionals do we have to achieve to mold or to support a learner to become, say, a top flight researcher, and so on. Then there are time to event analyses to understand, again, how to create a learning sequence that helps achieve the type of learning and outcomes that you want, and other combinations. So I'd like to return to the initial prompts. Question 1, what are your general areas of educational research interest? What do you like to read about, to explore? 2, what are educational research questions of interest to you? So even separate from research methods, what do you want to know about education, about learners, about techniques and technologies, or whatever other areas of interest you have? And what are some of your go-to educational research methods? So question 3, why? What types of questions do these help you to answer? Why do you find yourself headed towards particular educational research methods? What approaches turn you on in terms of interest? Which ones turn you off? And why? And then number 4, what are some of the educational research methods you're starting to learn, starting to apply, wanting to acquire? And so these are some prompts that we can start with just to get your mind on some of these ideas. And I'm going to go ahead and set up some small groups, and feel free to click in and jump into a discussion. Or I will have some open discussions too, so you can seed the room with whatever topics you find interesting. And I'll be visiting occasionally just to listen in and see what you all are up to. So There are some open questions in the field of education. One major one that has been extant forever is, how can practitioners bring in research to improve their practice in the teaching and learning? And then another question that might be a fun prompt is, how can teaching and learning meet the challenges of the present moment? However you would describe this present moment. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up, and we will head over into the groups.